All right. Looks like we're on live. This is not the normal podcast because I am limited on the time I could be on here, but I got a little bit of time here. And so we're trying ultra low latency. I usually go for the middle road, low latency. But YouTube has an option of, what is it? Ultra low. We'll see how that goes. This is my water pop. All right, but it's good to have some time to jump on here. So, you know, in light of the recent program that I did, the last podcast, we talked about Calvinism because that's what everybody was talking about. And, of course, we talk about it quite often here as well with Chad Wright. We did a podcast on his appearance on Joe Rogan and the Calvinism that he was lecturing Joe there with. Now, as always, that spawns discussions, and then it spawns more discussions after that. So I posted a Facebook post, and it was also on Calvinism, and got a discussion going. So I thought, you know, I'll jump on and we'll talk about Calvinism. And that's what we're going to do. Now, I have some particular points of denial here. So, for example, now these are what I'm going to talk about. Now, I am going to take phone calls here in just a little bit, very shortly. I'm going to tell you the things that I deny. Now, what I'll do, now, the last time we did live call-in programs, I just put my number on the screen. I will probably do that as well eventually, maybe even today. But for now, what we'll try is this. If you are a Calvinist and you want to call in, because it's really, we want to have discussions, not just people calling in to disagree. And you want to call in and take umbrage with something I'm saying here or something I'm denying, well, I'll let you call in. So here's what we could do. I'm going to give you my email. My email is, I'll just type it here, akrichardson@zoho.com, and just email me and say, I want to call in, something short like that, and I'll email you my phone number. So we have, so for now, we'll just send my phone number to you privately, an email, let you call in. Who knows how that'll go. Eventually, we'll just stick it on the screen. Maybe not this time, but eventually that's what we did last time. All right, so there's my email, akrichardson@zoho.com. I'll be checking my email. Now, if you start writing a lot, I'm probably just not even going to pay attention. It's just I want to call in, something like that. And pretty much if you just say that, that'll be good enough. And I'm not going to be reading paragraphs. Okay, so, until then, I say a few things. So, in Calvinism, the gospel is not the power of God of salvation. Now, that is something I talked about recently. Well, actually, I talked about it in that podcast about Chad Wright. Well, what do I mean? Well, because in Calvinism, the gospel can do nothing for you until God regenerates you. As we know, if you pay attention to these things, Calvinists believe regeneration precedes faith. Well, regeneration is new life. That's what it means to be regenerated. And so if you have to be regenerated to believe, well, then that means you have to be alive before you can believe, at least logically. And if that's the case, the truth is that the gospel does nothing, therefore. I mean, the gospel, if man is born totally depraved, which is what I also deny, the Calvinist version of this, well, then it is impossible. Now, this is what Calvinists teach, and this is what Chad Wright was saying to Joe Rogan, that no amount of words, not the gospel, nothing, can do anything for the lost person until God mysteriously works the Holy Spirit in his heart miraculously and causes him to have new life so that he can believe. The Bible says the opposite. It is through faith that you come to have new life. Okay, so I deny that the gospel has any power for the lost in Calvinism. Also, free will, I believe, obviously is affirmed by the Bible. The Bible does not teach total depravity. Faith precedes spiritual life, which is what I was talking about. The Bible does not teach unconditional election. Now, I'll say one thing. Now, if you call in, let's not be too chit-chatty, because number one, this is a live thing. This isn't just a private conversation. And number two, I'm on limited time here, even compared to my normal podcast. So, the rules for calling in are right there. Keep the conversation rolling, of course, get to the point. Not too, hey, how you doing? I'm such and such a person. You know, I've been watching you for years. It's not trying to be mean. I mean, I appreciate you guys, especially if you disagree watching. I just don't want to spend time on chit-chatting on a live program. But anyway, I appreciate you all who have jumped in here, spur of the moment kind of thing. Well, so let's talk about this while we are waiting, because what I have been talking about is, I elaborated on this in the last podcast, but Romans chapter 1, verse 16 says that I am not ashamed of the gospel. It is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes. To the Jew first, and also notice that belief. This gets you this by, and what do you believe but the gospel? Now notice Romans chapter 10. Faith comes from hearing, and hearing by the word of Christ. So faith comes from hearing the gospel, of course. But you see, that's the thing. In Calvinism, of course, you could hear it all day long. You have to be regenerated so that you can believe. And Romans chapter 9, of course, which has been one of the Calvinist strongholds for quite a while. Now, I had a recent discussion with James White. Most of you who pay attention to this podcast are probably aware of that. You've probably already seen it. And by the way, I saw publicly, I'm interested in the Jeremiah Nortier versus Leighton Flowers debate that'll be coming up. So that'll be interesting. Now, everybody knows, if you've been paying attention, that I have debated Jeremiah Nortier, and I've also had discussions with Leighton Flowers. So those two people I know, two guys I like, one I disagree with very much, and one I agree with very much. That'll be happening in Texas. You could check out Marlon's channel, but been looking forward to that. Let's see if we got anything here. Okay. No emails yet. Okay, if you're a Calvinist, you want to call in, just email me and tell me you want to call in. I'll shoot you my number, all right? Now, so let's go back to why we are waiting for calls. First, let's do... Okay, how do you join? Email me. I just sent my email up there. akrichardson@zoho.com. Just a short email that says, I want to call. I'll shoot you my email. Yeah, you don't have to call in. You guys can do what you're going to do in the side chat, but I'm talking about if you want to call in, if you're a Calvinist, we are going to take your phone calls. Remember the rules, I wish I had people that helped in the side chat. I want to, or bots, or whatever they do. I don't really know, but remember the rules. How do I type the rules in again? Let's see here. Okay. Call in rules. The other little caveat is sometimes the signal don't work too well in my office. We're going to do the best we can. I used to have a cable that connects my phone to my computer, and we could hear it live through, just over, but I'm going to have to just hope that we could pick it up with the speaker, because the new phone I have, well, amazingly, doesn't have a hole for a normal jack. I don't know what people are thinking. I mean, who doesn't use their phones for live call-in programs? But so 1 Corinthians, no, where was I going? Yeah, I think that's where I was going. Actually, let's do Romans chapter 8. And we can connect this back. All right, we got somebody wanting to call in. And I'm shooting him my number. We're going to hope that we get a signal in here. And we're going to do, if I have to hold the phone to the mic, we could do that too. But, so we have talked about, it wasn't too long ago, we talked about Romans chapter 8. If you don't know, I think most people here do, but if you don't know, I can pin, okay, that's what I'm going to do then. I'm going to pin message. There we go. Thanks for the advice. I pinned it. Also, I want everybody's feedback on audio, and I want your feedback on how the live stream is coming through, but I've got this set on ultra low latency, and it said there can be buffering issues, so we're going to see how this goes. If not, I guess I could always adjust it. So I shot my phone number. No phone calls yet. Okay, but we've recently talked about Romans chapter 8, total depravity. And if you can deal with total depravity with our Calvinist friends, you're going to deal with a lot of what is happening in the tulip system. So, because without total depravity, the Calvinist version of original sin, then it's hard to have the rest of the tulip. I guess you could have it. I think that the 5 steps consistently flow together. Now, see, that's the thing about the Calvinist system. Well, I think logically there's a lot of inconsistencies going on there, but at least the 5 points, I believe, are consistent with each other. And I've always said that Calvinists are consistent when it comes to their version of once saved, always saved, which is perseverance of the saints. But if you're going to believe in once saved, always saved, you should be a Calvinist. I think they're more consistent on it, although I don't believe you should believe either one, but that's just the way it works. No, the linchpin isn't God. I'm talking about the viewpoints. We could all say God. See, those are the things. God is not the linchpin. Of course, anybody would say that, but when you got a system, you don't have God in the tulip. You don't have gulip. You don't have tulig. You have T-U-L-I. We're talking about the acrostic and the viewpoints of Calvinism. Now, every viewpoint that people have about religion is, of course, they're going to say, well, this is what we're teaching about God. See, I believe in God, but I don't believe in the things that you believe. And I say all that because somebody said the linchpin is not total depravity, it's God. Yeah, but God isn't in your tulip. And I don't mean, you know what I mean. I mean, there's no G in there, so that's what we're talking about. So if you're a Calvinist, you want to call in, again, just email me. Somebody wanting it sees. And the more that people want it, we're not going to have, we're going to give everybody a fair amount of time here. Okay. But I have talked about Romans chapter 8, because when it comes to total depravity, this is one of those passages that they often cite, which is just a passage where when they read it, and again, don't take none of my tone or none of the things I say as personal. I have a high deal of respect for Calvinists on many issues, just not salvation. I have a lot of respect for James White on a lot of issues. R.C. Sproul, Sam Waldron, just not on these issues. So, Romans chapter 8. Let me find my screen. Now, verse 5 says, for those who are according to the flesh set their mind. For those who are according to the flesh set their minds on the things of the flesh, but those who are according to the Spirit, the things of the Spirit. The mind set on the flesh is death, but the mind set on the Spirit is life and peace. Because the mind set on the flesh is hostile toward God, for it does not subject itself to the law of God, for it is not even able to do so. And those who are in the flesh are not able to please God. Now, I've given my phone out to several people. Either my phone's not working or people just haven't actually called yet. If you try to call and it doesn't work, let me know. Okay, because I don't have a great signal in here. It might be a little bit of an issue. Okay, so generally the Calvinist looks at these two things and they say, this is the person. All right, let's try this. You are live on the air. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, this is Jim.
All right, thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
No, you actually went to the perfect subject, Romans chapter 8. So yeah, I would agree with you, like, on this issue, I think. But when I just look at it as somebody who tries to get back to, like, the simplicity of what Scripture is saying at any given point, I mean, we do have the language of can, hence ability, that's addressed in Romans 8, that, they which are in the flesh, cannot please God, things that speak to that. So I would really struggle with being able to say, like, if I were talking about, will and salvation, or where my faith ultimately comes from, like, I don't see how it's just from a plain reading of it that I'd be able to, maybe come to the conclusion that you have.
Okay, what specific thing are you talking about? Because I don't necessarily disagree with. Well, actually, I'm not even sure what you were asking there. What do you think what do you think my view is that you disagree with?
Well, I guess that'd be worth hashing out a bit more, just to be, like, really specific in this case. But, like, when I look at a verse, for example, Romans 8:8, so then they that are in the flesh cannot please God. I'm absolutely convinced that they that are in the flesh is an unsaved, unregenerate man. So if they can't please God, and faith is pleasing to God, which it obviously is, they can't have faith in Christ except they are in the Spirit.
Okay, so let's talk about that then. I'm looking for a particular word here. The mindset on the flesh. So I don't know if you're looking at the screen, and it's probably delayed anyway. Can you see the screen, or are you watching it?
Actually, right now I'm not looking at it.
Okay. Well, that's fine. I'm just going to talk you through this as I'm moving something here. So those who are according to the flesh, okay, you have... So you have this idea about the mind. It says, those who have set their mind on the things of the flesh, those who set their mind according to the Spirit. Okay, so let's think about this. So you said that those who set their mind on the flesh are unsaved individuals.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, what if I show you someone, do you think Peter was saved? Do you think Peter was saved as he was walking around with Christ?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to Matthew chapter 16. Now, this is a famous passage that I'm sure you and I would agree with or agree on. And we would disagree with the Catholics. So you have the famous confession in Matthew 16. And what Jesus says in 17 is, "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah." Now, do you believe that Simon is saved or unsaved right there?
Oh, I definitely believe he's saved right there.
Okay. So,
in fact, just to be clear, like, I would think that the disciples got saved pretty much when they met Jesus, or if there's, like, a first recorded confession of them recognizing that he's the Messiah, and that seems to be very early on from meeting Jesus. So
okay, fair enough.
If not even saved before then, but I would just tend to want to say that, okay, in recognizing him as the Messiah, that is, the what seals the deal for them.
Okay, I don't disagree with any of that. So both of us taking the position that Peter is saved here. Now, it says that as it goes on in verse 21, Jesus talks about his death. And it says in verse 22, and Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, God forbid it, Lord, this shall never happen to you. But he, Jesus, turned and said to Peter, get behind me, Satan, you are a stumbling block to me. Now, this next line is what I want to ask you about. It says, for you are not setting your mind on God's interest, but man's. Now, it actually uses the verb of the mind of the word that's used in Romans 8. Now, in Romans 8, it says the mind set on the flesh. Now, this is opposed to the things of the Spirit. Here he says he's being rebuked for this particular viewpoint that he has. And Jesus says, you are not. So Jesus is talking about what he is currently doing. And he says, you are not setting your mind on God's interest, but man's. Now, here's a case of Peter doing the very thing he's talking about in Romans 8. So how would you harmonize that?
Tell me again which verse you were looking at about the things it said on the things of men versus God.
Matthew chapter 16, and it is in verse 23. Now, for those of you...
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, just to be clear for the audience, like I'm a KJV only guy, so the King James language is different from the version you quoted.
I'll just go to the King James.
But that it's his savorist. But that being said, like I can still maybe get the point of like, okay, like there's still obviously a thing of the mind here, that's happening. So there's still relevancy to your argument, despite the language difference of what I'm going to go with versus what you're going with.
But I mean, you would agree though that the Greek. I mean, I have the Greek here on screen anybody can pay attention to it. It's the same. It's the same. The Greek is the same in Romans 8. It's phroneo here, and if I go over to Romans.
Are you doing Blue Letter Bible?
No, I got the King James on the screen. I have my own. I got accordance.
Okay. I just meant for like the Greek, if we're showing that. So, because that would be the TR Greek. So, I don't know if there's a discrepancy in the
No. So in Romans, it says in verse 5, they that are after the flesh are minding or do mind. It's King James now. Do mind the things of the flesh. And it's the same verb. It's phroneo. Here it's, phroneusin because it's third person plural there. So it's the same word. Now it says, okay, those who are in the flesh are phroneoing the things of the flesh. And what Jesus says to Peter at a time where Peter is thinking a way that is contrary to God's, and Peter is told by Jesus that he is minding, phroneoing, not the things that are of God, but the things that are of men. So there you do have an example of a saved person who is minding. Now that is my view, that you can be saved and you can set your mind on things of the flesh. And isn't it true though? I mean, wouldn't you agree with me that sometimes Christians are thinking ways that they shouldn't, and we have to come in and mind them? That's not the proper way. You got your interest in the wrong place. You're seeking the wrong things. You're at odds with God. That's what I believe is happening in Romans 8.
Okay. No, I do agree that Christians, get in the flesh. But do I believe that Romans 8, particularly in the verses that we're citing here in the earlier part of the chapter, are about that? I don't.
Okay. Well, I mean, honestly, I kind of knew that because you're a Calvinist. But what I'm saying is that in Romans 8, hold on, let me get back to my screen, at least on my monitor here.
I'll just say this, like, a lot of people I think would think of me as the Calvinist. I don't, I'm not a tulip Calvinist as far as, like, because I would have modification on all the points, I would say, in the final analysis compared to maybe the more traditional tulip. But, like, nevertheless, I think my conclusions will still end up being, leaning Calvinist versus Arminian or something like that.
Okay. Well, so you said that you disagree with my viewpoint. Now, what the text, of course, doesn't go out of its way to say this is about unsaved people, this is about saved. Now, you said, I believe this is about unsaved individuals. Well, even if it was about unsaved people here, I just demonstrated from Matthew 16 that it can also be true of saved people, even if it's not in Romans 8. Now, I don't believe that it's not only about unsaved people in Romans 8. But even if it were, Jim, I just demonstrated from Matthew 16 that it's true of saved people too.
Well, that makes sense because this might also be another difference that we have is like in the flesh. I mean, although I would agree that, well, maybe we don't agree on this, but I would say that, like, yes, that's pointing to like a state of a person, like in the flesh versus in the spirit, but like it's ultimately going back to like the fact that we have a mortal body, and I do believe that our mortal body is inherently sinful. So Christians, we have, even though we would be considered, I think in Romans 8, the ones who are in the spirit very clearly, but at the same time, we have this body of flesh, and that's constantly at war with our spirit.
Okay.
And the Spirit of God, as well.
Well, but the ultimate question is, because you said you disagreed with me that this was, and you said this was about saved people, but just on that point, to keep it on point, even if it were, Jim, the truth is, but this would be contrary to Calvinism. You say you're maybe a little different. But the point is, Calvinism says it can't ever be about saved people, and I just demonstrated that it is. So that would be a point against Calvinism.
Well, I think so. This is you might find this strange for me to say, but so I'm a dispensationalist before I'm a Calvinist, I would say. So I'm much more happy to embrace the term I'm a dispensationalist versus a Calvinist. So
okay.
And I won't even necessarily say that a dispensational argument is what I have to use, to distinguish Matthew 16 from Romans 8. But I would just use the general concept of rightly dividing the word of truth is something like, okay, that's just a different category of thought. It's still logically possible for Romans 8 to be talking about, okay, a person in the flesh is an unsaved, unregenerate individual versus a person in the spirit is a saved and regenerate individual. And at the same time, Matthew 16 is dealing with a saved individual that's pre-death, burial, and resurrection.
Well, but I agree with that.
He's having a bad moment.
But see, that doesn't work in Calvinism. I mean, and that's really what the discussion is about. Because Calvinists would have to deny, and they do deny, that in Romans 8, a person in the flesh could ever be a saved person. It's just not possible. And that's the whole point. But I demonstrated from Matthew 16 that there is saved people, because the truth is Romans 8 is not about two categories of people who have no control over which category they are in. The truth is, Paul is just saying, if you set your mind on the things of the flesh without saying who can or who cannot, then you're going to be in hostility with God, which is Peter's problem, which is why he got rebuked. Because as long as he had his interest on man's things, he was not doing the will of God. That's the whole point. So, but anyway, I appreciate you calling in, Jim. Call in again sometime.
Including for this broadcast or no?
Well, yeah, I want to get off and because I've got other requests. And if I don't get any, if you feel like calling in again, go ahead.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. All right, so we appreciate that. And that's what I'm saying. But he was kind of not fully Calvinism, but that's the issue. Calvinists don't ever allow for a saved individual to have his mind on the flesh. But this is exactly what it's talking about. So when it says, now notice this. This is the thing about total depravity in our Calvinist friends. Now, Matt, I don't know. Are you wanting to call in? Are you trying to call in? Because, let me see here. I've had no other phone calls. So, and I've had only a couple of requests there. So, when it comes, you don't have a number to call in. Yeah, I just messaged you back. You just texted me. Okay. But the truth is, what Paul is saying in Romans 8 has nothing to do with two people that have no control over which category they're in. All it is about, you called, the response was yes. No, you texted. You texted, and I said yes. All right, Matt, I'm going to call you.
Hi, you've reached Matt. I'm not available at the moment.
I have to be very careful about flipping the phone around. Okay. So, like we said, Paul goes on to say, now that's what the Calvinist says, there are two people and one cannot do the other. But if you notice what Paul goes on to say, verse 12, therefore, brethren, we would be Christians, right? Where are we at? We are debtors not to the flesh to live after the flesh, for if you live after the flesh, you shall die. But if, and you even have, this is conditional. All right. We're going to have to get this straightened out because this is Matt?
Yes.
All right, we finally got connected, Matt. So
Yeah, sorry about that.
that's all right. Now, I'll just tell people who don't have a background, you comment on my posts quite often, which is fine for me. But I always say I just don't read long. It's not personal to you. And I don't. Now, Matt likes to write, so I'll give him that. He's zealous. He'll post like whole chapters of responses to my comments. And that's okay. I just don't read them because I just don't have the time to read long comments. But nevertheless, well, thanks for trying to connect with us here. So what's on your mind?
Well, I was just following up with you because of our discussion, just to try to see, I guess just to have the discussion live, just so we can see, I'm trying to understand where you're coming against Calvinism is in conflict with, divine concurrence. It's in conflict with certain theological aspects that have reconciled the ideas that from where I'm sitting, the views that you have were reconciled a long time ago, but you're still kind of advocating from the other side of it. And so what I'm trying to do is figure out where is the disconnect and how come you're not reconciling it with everybody else.
All right, let's do this then. Let's just pick a point. Now, I actually had 5 listed on the screen. It kind of sounds like you're driving. You probably aren't watching the screen then. So
no, I'm sitting outside.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well, so, I mean, I deny pretty much all the T, rather all the tulip, the T, the U, the L, and the I, and the P's. So you just take your pick. Let's take a point, and let's just look at it.
Fair enough. So from where you're coming from, it seems like the tulip is kind of a thing, and I get it. I still affirm the entire tulip. However, that's not where I'm coming from. So my point of view is more from God's sovereignty and Him being God. So God, the godness of God, meaning that His attributes are infinite and eternal, and not like human attributes. And so I think the confusion comes in because if you look at the tulip and then if you look at doctrines of grace, you'll see God's sovereignty asserted in the doctrines of grace, but not necessarily in the tulip. So I'm kind of drifting from the tulip into the doctrines of grace to try to kind of get into another aspect of God's sovereignty that I think that is being missed.
Okay, so I believe God is sovereign. So we don't disagree on Him being sovereign.
I think we do. So what does that to you when you...
I'm losing you. You still there?
Hear me?
Yeah, there you are.
Okay, so I'm trying to determine, what does it mean to you when you say that God is sovereign?
Sovereignty means having all authority, the right to rule. So God has the right to rule. He's certainly power enough to do whatever he wants. Granted, we would both agree it's not logically impossible. The whole, he can't make another God. Okay, we all know that, right? So granted, those certain exceptions that most of us agree on, God can do. He's powerful enough to do everything he wants. He certainly has the right. He's the creator of everything. So he has the right to rule. He has all authority.
Okay, but the right to rule is a little bit different than the active participation in constantly ruling. So do you think that he has the right to rule, or do you think that he's actively participating in ruling at all times?
God is in rule. Everything that's happening is either by his permission or by his directive.
Well, there you go. You just described the two aspects of God's will that you denied. You said you don't ascribe to those two aspects of his will, but you just define them.
I don't know any non-Calvinists in the world that would deny that God permits things. Calvinists don't believe he permits things. They say that he does, but they're inconsistent. And I believe God does things. When God creates, that's a direct act. So he's ruling directly or by permission, or he allowing.
Okay, so I guess a question would be directly towards free will or libertarian free will, which seems to be the doctrine that you protect the most. And my question is, how does that reconcile with what you're saying now?
Okay. So if God has the right to rule, does he have the right to create a creature and allow the creature to either make choices or to resist what he wants? Or does he have that right? Is he sovereign enough to do that? I'm asking you, is God sovereign enough? Does he have the authority to create a creature like man or an angel and not determine what the person's will is? If he wants a creature to have libertarian free will, does he have authority to make them?
Well, I think the problem with that lies in the philosophical baggage that comes in with libertarian free will, especially the aspect where it says that no outside influences can possibly be a factor inside of. That's
not what free will means.
No, that's what libertarian free will means. Absolutely.
That's not. No, I don't know. I don't know a free will. Yeah. Listen, I know what the definition. Let's just grant to you that you're right, and that other people that believe in free will, libertarian, would define it that way. I haven't heard them do that. That's not how I define it. We're not a will that is free is not free from influences. Why we get influenced all the time? I mean, what's the problem with that?
Right. Well, that's what libertarian free will asserts, is that it's an independent, autonomous type of free will that seems to be asserting its autonomy from God himself. Therefore, indicating that everything that comes from that point forward would be sin.
Okay, so Matt, this is a problem of definition. That's not what the definition is. If you look at how non-Calvinists... Well, yeah, I mean, you're talking to me. So the definition of libertarian free will is the ability to choose without prior or outside causation. That nobody is causally determining will, not influence. Now, the influence is the word you used, but influences don't make people make choices. So that's what libertarian free will is.
No. Okay, so here's the way that God's sovereignty actually works. So God's sovereignty is infinite, right? It's not like a king's sovereignty where he's limited in his scope of what he's actually sovereign over and how he can handle those things. So God's sovereignty is actually intertwined with his omniscience, his omnipotence, all of his other attributes are intertwined with that. So when you talk about God's sovereignty, you're talking about an infinite level of control over everything.
Okay, well, first of all, one point at a time, we were talking about free will, then we'll get back to sovereignty. You said that what I believe, and you defined or represented my belief in libertarian free will as being free from influences. We need to correct the record so far, though, before we move on.
No, I liked your definition. Your definition was good about the first and secondary causes and everything.
Okay,
so
but
ultimately,
but wait, hold on a second. But
okay, go ahead.
But okay, that's good that you are on board with my definition. But let's just be clear: influences I never affirm that we're free from influences. We get influenced all the time. So influence has nothing to do with it.
Right. No, influence has everything to do with it. So you're born in a particular place. You're born in a particular point in time. Everything about you has been controlled and dictated by God himself. Everything from your conception to your birth to your point in time, everything about your family, your influences, all of that is predetermined.
That's not what we're talking about. You're not.
Yes, it is.
Well, you're not getting what I'm saying. You're not getting what I'm saying, Matt. Okay. I do agree that God has determined everything around us, and I believe that he has determined we live in a world with influence. I'm not denying we are influenced. I'm saying that free will does not mean we are free. Our will is not free from influence. That's not what we're talking about. We are influenced, but we still have the ability to choose contrary to influence. They do not make us choose, is the point we have. If we cannot get that, then you don't even know what I believe.
Do you have the ability to choose something that was never presented to you due to your circumstances? Like that seems kind of ludicrous that you would choose to do something that is outside of your knowledge base. It seems ridiculous. I
didn't say that that had nothing to do with what I said. I said we can choose contrary to influences.
Okay, right. So those influences are also dictated by God.
Okay,
so
of course, I agree. We're not getting to the point of disagreement here, Matt.
Right. So at which point, okay, I don't want to get necessarily to the point of disagreement. What I'm trying to do is just double down on God's sovereignty and try to explain to you.
Okay, but one point at a time. You you said this on Facebook too, and it's a part that we're not getting to. Okay, so does a person have to give in, and must they, by necessity, choose everything they're influenced? So if you get hungry and you're on a fast for God, okay, you're hungry. Hunger is an influence. Does the influence make you choose to eat?
Potentially, like it depends. It depends on the situation, but those are all circumstantial things. What I want to get down to the nitty gritty with you is regarding God's sovereignty, and we're specifically around Genesis 50:20. Whenever it talks about men doing things that are contrary to God's will, right? Yet at the same time, part of God's decree. And yet you seem to think that those two things are completely divided.
Okay.
Where on the one hand, you're saying man has libertarian free will, but you're missing the overarching theme of God's sovereignty and the fact that he is still in control of every one of those events, regardless of whether you choose him or not. He's still in control, and that all of the things that are done, whether good or bad, are still part of God's sovereignty, and that all things work for the good of those who love him, according to Romans 8:28 and 29.
Okay, so we can go to Genesis. We didn't really get squared up on libertarian free will and the influence issue, but that's okay. We can move on beyond that. So you're talking about Joseph and his brothers, right?
Correct. And how that applies not just to Joseph and not just to the cross, because we know that the cross is the same way, right? Judas was completely, every detail of what he did was predetermined by God. Yet you seem to think that somehow invalidates man's real choices, and that would make man a robot or something like that.
Yeah,
versus what God says, which is that he does both and deal with it.
Okay, well, first of all, I don't typically use the robot thing, but it's Calvinists that have the Calvinistic interpretation of the potter and clay, which is worse than a robot. At least, I mean, a clay pot, if it's understood the way you guys say, would be worse than a robot. I don't know why you guys object to the robot thing so well, but I didn't even bring up the robot thing here. So Genesis 50. Okay, so
but was Judas a robot or not? Was he a robot?
Well, I'm not a Calvinist. I mean, I don't believe he was a robot.
Okay, well then how can you say anybody else is possibly even in that category whenever that's how he operates?
Okay, you got a lot of noise in the background there.
Okay, I'm asking you, like, if that's how God operates, how can you possibly suggest that there's anything wrong with that?
I'm hearing like some kind of squealing or music or something.
Yeah, no, it's a apparently a bell or some kind. Sorry.
Okay, it's kind of overtaking the line. Okay, I can't.
It's gonna go away soon. I apologize. I don't know why it's ringing incessantly.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to. Yeah, I can't. You want to call back when you don't have that noise?
It's like 30 more seconds. It'll go away. I apologize. Yeah,
All right.
Let me step inside somewhere where it will go away. There we go.
Okay.
How about now?
Yeah, I don't hear it now.
Okay.
Okay. Now, what were you saying?
Okay. So specifically when it comes to God and Judas, right? And the way that Judas's life was predetermined before the foundation of the world, and every single thing that Judas did was exactly according to the way that God had already predetermined.
Okay, where does it say he predetermined what?
Well, how do you reconcile God's, Judas's responsibility?
Well, my question is, where does the Bible say God predetermined everything about Judas?
Well, the fact that he predicted every single aspect of what Judas was going to do.
Okay, so you just conflated prediction with determination.
Well, God predetermined, so.
Well, no, you just affirmed it again, but you didn't. Okay, Matt, hold on a second. You said he.
It happened exactly the way that God determined, and then therefore, what else do you have left?
You keep saying that, but I'm asking you to prove it. Where does the Bible say he predetermined everything about Judas?
Like the pieces of silver, the fact that he would kiss him on the cheek.
Okay, foretelling. Now, it prophesies. It does not. Where does it say that God determined that he would do these things?
Oh, well, then he prophesied exactly perfectly every single time. That's the point. It's determined.
Okay, now you're question begging. You're question begging.
Do you think that God guessed? What?
No, okay, we have to slow down here, Matt. I believe in prophecy. I believe God foreknows the future. Foreknowing, prophesying, you are conflating with predetermination. Those are not the same concepts. You just keep asserting that he prophesied it, therefore he predetermined it. Well, that's question begging. You have to prove that he determined it. So where does the Bible teach that he predetermined it?
Well, whenever you speak of God's foreknowledge, his omniscience and everything else, everything that is foreknown by God before the foundation of the world is absolutely perfectly going to happen according to the exact way that he foreknew it.
I agree,
so
but where does he predetermine it?
Okay, so here's your question. Can you do anything outside of what God has predetermined or that God has foreknown? Because predetermined and foreknown are almost interchangeable when you're dealing with an omniscient, perfect God like that.
Okay.
Like what you're talking about is trying to differentiate between those two things, but you're not combining, you're not looking at all of these different attributes in combination.
You are just asserting the very thing I deny that Calvinists so often assert. You say, if he foreknows it, therefore he determines it. Well, you can keep repeating it, but those are two different definitions. Those are two different words with two different definitions.
It's different in semantically, but as far as the way that it plays out, they're exactly the same.
Prove it. I mean, you have to prove it. Where does the Bible teach that he predetermined everything about Judas?
You would have to prove it.
No, you are. That's no. It doesn't work that way. Okay, I'm going to take over here. That is not the way that it works. Now, Matt, they can't hear you at the moment. They can't hear you at the moment. All right.
You have to prove it. You can't prove it.
All right.
But that's what you have to do.
Now, Matt, I'm going to put you on hold.
Prove it. Prove it.
He's screaming now. You know you're losing a conversation when you're getting emotional. Now, so this is the way that it works. Actually, a negative doesn't prove it. Now, if a Calvinist is going to actually say that that God predetermined something, and when you ask, show me where he predetermined it, and you say, well, he prophesied it. Okay, I believe that. But that's, of course, we all agree at that. Where did he determine it? Well, it's the same thing. Now prove it. No, you prove it. Oh, no, it actually doesn't work that way. No, if you're going to assert that if he foreknows something, he predetermined it, you are going to have to prove it because you're the one making the assertion. Now, I'm going to put you back on, Matt. Now, just calm down a little bit. Okay. Listen, hold on a second. Okay, you can call back, but you're not going to just talk over me. Okay, so Now, we never got to it because he never could prove the assertion about Judas. So let's do this thing in Genesis chapter 50. Now, you can call back, but you're going to have to be more relaxed. You're going to have to slow down a little bit. Okay, in Genesis chapter 50, it says right here. Now, I think most people know the story. Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery, and then he got sold into Egypt. And, of course, long time later, he ends up by being promoted by Pharaoh. By the blessing of God, he was able to save from famine his own family. And so what happened is that his brothers, they meet and they become regretful and sorry. Now they're afraid that now that the father has died, Joseph would turn around and kill him. That's not what he wants to do. But so this is a common passage for our Calvinist friends. Now it says, and Joseph said unto them, his brothers, fear not, for am I in the place of God? But as for you, you thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive. Now, so here's what we have. We have our Calvinist friends that will say, you see, there's Calvinism. That's basically what he did. That's not Calvinist. See, this is actually a non-Calvinist passage. This is my verse. Because I'm the one that says, man has one plan, man has one will that is not what God wants, and God uses it contrary to that to get his good purpose. So God meant what they did for good. Now, that's non-Calvinism. Because just like the atonement of Christ, God can take evil and he could take evil people and he could use it for good. He can orchestrate all that he could pre-orchestrate. But what the Genesis doesn't say here, and this is the difference because this is what Calvinists read into it, that he determines their intentions. Now, what God meant for good, it was him being sold into slavery. But it doesn't say he predetermined that they would be evil so that they would sell him. That's the Calvinist assumption. And that would actually be irrational. That would be meaningless. Because when the text says that God meant it for good, but you meant it for evil, actually, God meant both. You meant it for evil, but actually their intentions are also determined by God. So then what difference does it make? But, okay, so now Jim, Matt's not calling back yet. He's welcome to, if he will just slow down a little bit. Let's see if we got any other requests. No, just you two guys. Okay, so you're welcome to call in. Stay on point. Look at the call-in rules up there. So now Matt got a little testy, and that's okay, but it doesn't do good for conversation. And I'm really going to shut you down if you start to get too testy. But everybody heard that discussion. Now, so returning to that, this is the same old thing. Well, if he foreknows it, he predetermined it. That's an assertion. You see, that's not the way this works. You cannot just assert something and then what he did was say, no, you prove that's not true. No, well, first of all, I can prove that it's not true, and I will do that here in just a second. But if I'm talking to you and you make the assertion that these two words that mean two different things equate to the same thing, you prove it. That's your job if you're going to make the assertion. Actually, let me go to somewhere here. Now, first of all, I could prove it with the Bible, and I can prove it without the Bible. Without the Bible, I just prove it by the definition. All right, let's see what we got here. You are live on the air. Are you there? Hello. If you're listening to... Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. Is this Matt?
Yes, this is Matt.
Okay, so... Go ahead.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, go ahead. Now, if you're listening to the screen, don't listen to the screen. It's delayed. You have to listen over the phone. Are you there? Hello. Can you hear me, Matt? Hello.
I'm having a couple connection issues because it's not
Yeah.
Not really connected.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I can't just keep here trying to get this to work. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, there you are. Just make sure you're not listening to the computer because it's behind a little bit. You have to listen to the phone.
Yeah, okay, I got you now.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so my emphasis on God's foreknowledge, the fact that you can't do anything outside of His foreknowledge, I'm trying to figure out how you think you can get outside of what has already been foreknown.
Okay. I think I can answer you. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
All right. I'm just typing in my email there again for people. Okay, so what God foreknows, so if He knows what a person will choose, then that person will not choose other than what God foreknows. Okay? I think where your confusion is because you think that also means He cannot. But what God foreknows a person will choose has nothing to do with what He can choose. It just means what He will choose. So I'll give you an example. God just assuming you and I agree, God foreknows all things. Okay. You still can hear me? Can you still hear me? Are you there? All right. I'm sorry. I don't know if it's my signal or your phone, but it's not good just to keep having the difficulty there. I'm just going to say it here. And yes, there's my email for anybody else that wants to request a call in. Okay. So this is the problem. And for the life of me, honestly, I don't know why people have not Calvinist. I know why they struggle with this because it affirms their theology. I'm not saying they're dishonest. I'm just saying it just goes hand in hand with their system. Foreknowledge is not the same thing as determination. It simply is not. Knowledge and determining, knowledge and choosing are not the same thing. It is a non sequitur to say, well, if He foreknows it, He determines it. No, that's not the case. Now, I said I can prove it without the Bible and I can prove it with the Bible. First, I'll prove it with the Bible. Now, here you have the two words used differently. It says, for whom He did foreknow, He also did predestine. This is the King James, predestinate. Let me go to Legacy Standard. So whom He did foreknow, He also. Now, but that's not what Matt was saying, because that's what non-Calvinists also say, that He also predestines. What Matt is saying, that if He foreknows it, that's the same thing. But when the Bible says if He foreknows people, He also, do you know what that also means? It means it's not the same thing. Because you don't say also when one thing is the same as another. That's kind of obvious, right? Okay, so when it says because those whom He foreknew, He also predestined, and in this case, to become conformed to the image of His Son. But you notice that predestination as a concept is distinct from foreknowledge. Predestination, distinct from foreknowledge. Now, that's what the Bible. I could also, and by the way, I could prove that. Remember when, other examples, you remember when David asked God if Saul would come down and if the people of the city would deliver him over? God said, yes, he's coming down, and yes, they will deliver you. And so there, God foreknows what they will do. That is foreknowledge. But David left, and so that didn't happen. Because foreknowledge is not determination. I could prove it with the Bible. I could also prove it without the Bible. You know how? Because the definitions of the word. You see, because Calvinists are just simply saying they're the same concept. They're not the same concept. You can't just simply assert something to be true and then say, well, it just is. And that's what Matt was doing. He was just reasserting it. Now, when I asked him first, he ran into that trouble as soon as I called him on God predetermining everything about Judas. When he made that statement, I mean, I knew it was going to be a problem for him. That's exactly why I asked him, show me the Bible. Well, it said he did exactly what God said He would do. right? Not an answer to the question. That has nothing to do with determination. Where does it say he determined? Well, he prophesied it perfectly. You notice the struggle began instantly, that he couldn't even figure out what I'm asking, because in his mind, one is the same as the other, and that's the problem. It's not. Yes, we all agree that he prophesies. That doesn't mean he determined it. So, not only can I prove it by the definition of the words being different because they're different concepts, I can prove it by hypothetical examples as well. If I take a DeLorean to the future, I'm talking about the time machine car. If I take a DeLorean to the future and I find out who's winning the next year's Super Bowl, the next Super Bowl to come, and then I come back to present times, I now have knowledge of the future. I have knowledge of who wins. But am I determining who will win? No, it's because knowledge is not the same concept as choosing or deciding. And that's what predestination is. It's deciding beforehand, predetermining. So no matter which way you cut it, the two concepts are not the same. No, I'm not making a valid argument. See, Matt says, and they do exactly as it was foreknown. That's because his foreknowledge is infallible. God's foreknowledge is inseparable of what actually happens, not the issue. Does he determine what happens? You see how Matt is still not connecting the dots. He's still conflating foreknowledge with determination. He cannot get off that horse. And I think that once he steps off that horse, he's going to see, wait a minute, this is a mule. And I'm kind of being jokey with my wording here, but you know what I mean. If he steps off and sees that foreknowledge is not equal predestination, then he's going to say, okay, wait a minute, we got somewhere here. So, now, you're welcome to call back in. I don't know what's happening with the phone there, but it's the way it is. By the way, now, when I look at my screen on YouTube, it shows it having problems visually. Anybody else having problems? All right, we're going to try this again. Okay, are you there? Hello.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, at least for now.
All right, I hope it stays.
Me too. All right, go ahead.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can still hear you.
All right, fantastic. So my question for you is that if you can't do anything outside of God's foreknowledge, what in the world makes you think that everything's not predetermined?
I didn't say that you can do anything. Everything that you can do, God foreknows. He also knows what you will do. And this is what I was getting to before I kind of lost you there on the last phone call. So I'm just giving you an example so you know what I'm talking about. So God, let's say that I just picked up a blue pen right now as I'm talking to you. Okay, God foreknew that I would pick up this pen. Okay, now we both agree with that, right? God foreknew that I would pick up this pen. I also had the option of picking up my little fan remote. See, God knows two things here. He knows, or I would say he knew ahead of time, he foreknew infallibly what I would choose to pick up. He also knew that I could have not picking up my pen and that I could have picking up the remote. So God knows what I will do, and I agree with you. I will not do other than what God knows that I will do. But that doesn't speak about what I could have done, because what a person can do and what they will do is different. Now, that's as plain as day. I can.
My question to you is plain as day, but let me ask you this. What you don't do is kind of irrelevant. Like, the idea of what you can do seems kind of pointless at the point where God knows exactly what you will do.
Right. But you're saying that he determines what you will do, but it is, in fact, the non-Calvinist that says you are the one choosing and God knows it. What you believe is that God knows what he determines for you to do, and that's very unreasonable.
Yeah, no, God does determine. You can't do anything outside of what God foreknew.
Of course. I agree.
You're locked in, man.
No, see.
You're locked in. And do you agree that God set every bit of this in motion whenever he made creation? Like before the foundation of the world, he knew exactly how it was going to play out.
Okay, I set my child's life and all his decisions in motion when my wife and I had him, but that doesn't mean we determine all his choices. Okay, you misrepresented something there. You said you cannot get out of the fact that God foreknows everything you will do, but I've already conceded that. But that doesn't mean he determines it.
But you contradict it whenever you try to play like man has sovereignty over his own life and that he can make choices outside of that. You literally.
I don't know what any of that means. Okay, hold on a second. You are representing me. Matt, you represent me in a false way, and then you continue to refute it. I didn't. The way that you just represented my view is not what I believe. Okay, I don't believe man is sovereign. I believe God is sovereign. Do you understand that?
What's the difference in determination and God foreknowing everything perfectly? What's the difference?
Because determination is him deciding something beforehand, and foreknowledge is him knowing it.
Yeah, he did all that before he set it in motion. So
okay, but you just asked me what the difference is. You just asked me what the difference is. I gave you the difference. You are the one that can't get the difference.
It's a difference without a distinction because you're literally saying the same thing. You're agreeing with me that God is in full control.
Okay, so
you think you have free will, which is nuts.
Well, everybody could judge for themselves. I just used two different definitions. I talked about what God foreknows, and I talked about the difference being one is what he determines. Now, you said those are the same, but I mean, anybody can look up the two words and prove either me right or prove you right. Either they are the same thing or they're not.
You're going to see two different definitions.
That's right.
If you look at his foreknowledge and the way that it plays out in reality, that means that everything happens perfectly according to his foreknowledge. Therefore, you are locked in determinately.
No. See, you're just reasserting the same thing.
You agree with me in foreknowledge.
I deny that he determines. Hey, Matt, I deny that he determines everything. Hey, hold on a second. I deny that God determines everything. I just denied it, and since I have two different definitions...
Does he foreknow everything?
I've already conceded that, Matt.
Okay, well then, therefore he determines everything.
Okay, that's begging the question. They're two different words, and you're using...
No, it's not begging the question. You just agreed that it's over, man. That's it.
I just denied... I didn't agree. Hey, Matt, if I deny that God determines everything, and you say, well, you just agreed, then you're not paying attention. I deny that God determines everything. And the Bible doesn't teach that he determines everything.
He does, by his foreknowledge.
Give me the Bible. No, okay, no. You foreknowledge, determining. You prove that God determines everything. Okay, so you keep affirming that God foreknows everything. I already do. Now prove that he determines everything.
Correct. By his foreknowledge, he determines
Now I was asking you a question. I mean, if he foreknows it, prove that he also determines it.
Yes.
Okay. Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me?
If you could do
Matt, can you hear me?
With his foreknowledge, that would be different.
Can you hear me, Matt?
I can hear you.
Okay, I'm asking because your answers aren't really working with my question. My question is, okay, how do you prove from the Bible that God determines everything just because he foreknows it? You keep saying that it is the same thing.
Because
prove
everything happens perfectly according to his foreknowledge, therefore
right.
It's predetermined.
Okay, the therefore. Now, see, the therefore is what I want you to prove. I can say there's a pen in my hand, therefore I can fly like a bird. Okay, I could say it all day long.
Here's how you beat it, man. Do something outside of God's foreknowledge and you beat it.
But I already agreed. You're not listening. You're not listening. Matt.
Your goose is cooked.
You're not listening. You're not listening. I already agreed that I can't do anything outside of it. I believe.
All right.
You're not following it.
You're done. It's determined.
Okay, prove it.
By his foreknowledge, you're done. It's over. Your goose is cooked.
Why? Because you conflated two definitions?
You're kind of not following it to its logical conclusion.
I want you to give me the logical conclusion, Matt. God foreknows all things, therefore he determines it. Prove it. See, why don't you just prove it if it's so easy? Instead of just saying your goose is cooked, I've given you like 30 opportunities to say, okay, instead of just saying I just proved it, Why don't you actually prove it?
It's contradictory to God being God.
Okay, instead of just telling me that I've just been disproven, why don't you actually prove it? Actually demonstrate how foreknowledge means the same thing as determination. Prove it.
I absolutely can do that.
Okay, do it right now. I'm giving you the opportunity.
No. Here's the thing. Everything that God has ever foreknown is to happen perfectly.
Yes.
Therefore.
Okay. No, you're just restating the argument. You have to prove. That's not how an argument. You see, repeating an argument does not prove an argument. That's called question begging. You have to prove the therefore.
Forgot what was going on, and then he got kind of like loosey goosey and didn't know what was happening.
Okay, I don't know what you're talking about. This has nothing to do with anything I'm talking about.
That's exactly. I don't know what you're talking about either.
Okay, so let me repeat the question. Okay, so instead of repeating your argument, instead of just repeating, he foreknows everything, therefore he determines it. Prove it.
Yeah.
No. See, you said yeah. Okay. Everybody pays attention to what is happening here. All you are doing is just repeating. Okay.
Listen, you cannot divorce God.
I'm going to put you on hold. Okay. Everybody sees what is happening. Every time I tell him to actually prove what he's saying, he just repeats the argument. That's not the way that it works. Now, when I can prove to you, I just proved from everybody on the screen, in fact, that the definitions are shown, that the two concepts in the Bible are not the same thing. I also gave you two different definitions. I also gave you examples demonstrating that the two are not the same. So if Matt wants to, so we're going to try this one more time. I'm going to take Matt off of hold, and I'm going to let him speak again. Now, if he just repeats it and says, therefore, then I know that he's got nothing. So if I'm going to give him one more time. Okay. I'm going to give you one more opportunity. Okay. Instead of just telling me, therefore this, why don't you actually prove that foreknowledge, which is a different word, necessitates determination?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Just make sure you're not listening to the screen. You got to listen to the phone.
All right. Wait, am I live or what?
You are live.
Okay, so from where I'm sitting, predestination and foreknowledge and predeterminism are all interlocked together. You are somehow trying to separate the two, and it's to my complete. I'm baffled by how you can possibly do that.
Well, it's not hard. I mean, I just told you how it was.
I get it, but it's not honest. The honest thing is that if you can't do anything outside of what God foreknew before He set the creation in order, before He set the world in motion, then you're predetermined, dude.
Yeah. Okay. You did it again. All right. Listen. I appreciate you calling. Okay, we're not going to waste everybody's time. Just repeating the argument does not work, because I can just repeat the same thing to you. There are two different words with two different definitions. Just saying, well, one necessitates the other, and I deny it. So, Matt, just know, you keep saying, if he foreknows all things, that means he determines it. I deny it, because the two are not the same thing. Okay, hold on one second. I don't know what that was. Okay. I heard something. I show from the Bible that the two are not the same. Knowledge and foreknowledge has to do with what a person knows. Deciding something means it's what they choose. And so those are two different definitions. And so when Matt just says, well, the one necessitates the other, I say that it doesn't. In fact, logically, it does not, because they're two different words. This whole thing about semantics, well, semantically, they're different. Well, that's right. And when you use them in a sentence, you're applying the semantic meaning. So if the semantic meaning is different, then that proves my point. Besides that, the Bible proves it. In fact, the very premise that I could state to be true would prove it. God foreknows that a person can choose to sin and that a person can choose not to sin. All right, I'm going to prove it another way. If Romans 8 isn't enough, I'll prove it another way. Matt just, he just goes around in a circle. 1 Corinthians 10. You know what it says here? It says, no temptation has overtaken you, but such as is common to man. Now, if you're a Calvinist and you just heard Matt just repeat the argument as if that proves it 100 different times, I want you to pay special attention if you think the same way. It says, no temptation has overtaken you, but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not allow you. Now, that's interesting. He will not allow you to be tempted. But in Calvinism, God doesn't allow anything. Now, I know Calvinists use the word allow, but it's inconsistent. God determines everything. If he allows anything, he's only allowing the very things that he determines. See, that's unreasonable. That's why Calvinism is found to be so unreasonable, because of things like that. But it says, God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able, but with the temptation will provide the way of escape also, so that you will be able to endure. You know what the whole point of that is? If a person sins, it means they could have escaped. They could have escaped. Well, if God unchangeably, that's the Calvinist terminology, if God unchangeably determines that a person will choose to sin, they don't have the ability to escape it. Unless you want to say that they're stronger than God. If it's unchangeable and you believe God is all powerful, that means they don't have the ability to change what he determined. And if that's the case, they were not able to escape. So we have here the fact we already agree that God foreknows all things. And yet, if let's say that he foreknew that, let's talk about Judas. He foreknew that Judas would sin by betraying Christ. He also knew that Judas was able to escape the temptation. If Judas gets too theological, let's just make up somebody. Rob chooses to commit murder. No, let's do something. Let's do it like this. Rob was tempted because Rob was hungry. He hadn't eaten in a long time. He's very poverty-stricken. Well, he's tempted to steal a cake that a woman had in her window. Do people still do that? I don't know. He was tempted to take the cake, steal the cake, and eat it. And that's what he does. Well, according to let's say he was a Christian too. And this Christian Rob had a way to escape that he was able to endure the temptation. God foreknew that he would sin anyway. And yet he was able to not do what God foreknew that he would do. Do you see that? Will and could are two different things. When we talk about what a person will do, it just means what they will choose to do. But what they can do and what they will do are not the same things. If a person, you see, and I just proved that with the scripture. God, if Rob or any real life person that actually commits sin, well, any Christian that sins, we all agree, unless you're an open theist, that God foreknew that that Christian would commit that sin. According to this passage, if you believe it, they didn't have to do it. Now, what that means is that they could have done differently than what God knew that they would do. Now, it's not true that they will do differently than what God knows, because his foreknowledge is infallible. But this is very clear. God knows what a person will choose, but he also knows that a person did not have to choose that. And if the person had chose differently, well, God would have foreknown that already. So, no, Matt gets a little amped up, evidently, and I could tell that from some of the comments that he leaves. He gets a little amped up because he just wants to assert the argument and say, well, that's it. Yeah, but guess what? It wasn't it. And guess what? My goose is still fresh. My goose isn't cooked here yet, because I just provided you at least two scriptures so far demonstrate the very opposite of what he says. But that's the way it is. So these are the things that I deny, and I haven't checked it if there is any more. Okay, somebody else wants to call in. I'm going to shoot you my number. Okay. Give me one moment while I send them the number. I almost sent you the wrong phone number right there. Okay. All right. So the person that requested it, I just shot you an email. See how it goes. Yeah. So anyway, these are the things I deny. Now, we were talking about Romans 8 a long time ago. This is kind of the thing with the call in when you're just taking calls. As you're going to kind of jump around. And that's okay. I mean, because we don't do this often. And I should do this in my podcast, my weekly podcast. I just don't have a lot of time. I found the time now, and I was doing some painting of my fence. And I painted. I said, I'll give it a second coat later. And I decided to do that. So, this is fun, though. Yeah, so I shot somebody my phone number. Hopefully they'll call in, too. But okay. Let's just go through these real quick. In Calvinism, the gospel is not the power of God to salvation, because Calvinists believe that a lost person doesn't have even the ability to believe in the gospel. The gospel can do nothing for them. When God gives them life, which is backwards from the scriptures, then they believe. Well, if they have life, they're not lost. See, that's the way that works. If you have life, well, you don't need to be saved in the first place. So that's why that's a problem in Calvinism. Now, the only thing I wish that I could do is have some help taking these things. He's still at it here. Matt says, and I think I know what he's talking about. This dude, he's talking to me in the third person, but he's talking to me. This dude pretending not to hear me talking while it's playing over the air. I didn't pretend not to hear him. I was asking him if he could hear me. Now listen, or actually, I'm not quite sure what he's talking about now that I think about it. But there was a time when I was asking him if he could hear me, because I would ask him a question, how could you prove such and such? And he would say, yeah. What? That doesn't even make sense. I mean, so I was just trying to make sure he was paying attention. But when he says this dude pretending not to hear me, I don't know what he's talking about. So, any more requests? Now, all you Calvinists, I love you. I love Matt too. He gets a little amped up. And, listen, if we were having here's the thing. If it's going to waste time and you're just going to go in circles, it's not personal. I handle things in a one-on-one conversation a little differently than I'm going to do on air. But you don't want to waste people's time. Okay? So, anyway, okay, so the next, free will is affirmed by the Bible. That's pretty clearly. It affirms it in statements about a person's will, such as in 1 Corinthians 7. Also, every time God shows condemnation or holds men accountable or responsible or condemns them or brings judgment on them, that affirms free will. But of course, because no Calvinist can rationally affirm holding somebody responsible for something they have absolutely no control over. You see, responsibility, culpability, judgment, punishment presupposes libertarian free will. Okay, the Bible does not teach total depravity. That's very clear. I know the passages they go to that don't speak about how man is born. Romans 8 doesn't speak about how man is born. And that's the essential nature of the doctrine, that they are born incapable. Now, if you're a Calvinist, I got a question for you if you want to call in. I got a question that I want to ask. So what Calvinist out there is willing to call in? Matt can call in too, because we're going to get off that circle he was on. But if you're a Calvinist, I challenge you to call in and answer my question. I have a question for you. And I'm not going to tell you what it is until you call up. So we continue here. Faith precedes spiritual life. I don't know how more clearly the Bible could say that. So let's look at a few passages. John. I typed the wrong thing. Let's do this here. So I think everybody knows the passage that I'm going to. While I'm looking for it here. Matt is saying, this is absolutely contradictory baloney. He says they are different. You did too. You said they have different semantic meanings, but refuses to acknowledge God is one and they're interlocked. No, I deny it. I mean, he can know something without determining. Easy. I mean, easy. Logically, it does necessitate the other. I deny that. Because knowledge doesn't mean you decide something. To know what a person will do does not mean. I mean, I just deny it on the face of it. And Romans 8 proves it. 1 Corinthians 10:13 proves it. So not only is the definitions of the word against you, not only is logic against you, Matt, scripture's against you. I just gave you two. I forget even where I'm going here. Okay, now I remember. Okay, so John chapter 20, when it comes to the Calvinist belief that new life precedes faith, which is contradictory to the logical order of the Bible, John said, therefore many other signs Jesus also did in the presence of the disciples, which are not written in this book. But these have been written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ. But you can't believe it until God gives you life. Because Calvinists believe regeneration precedes life, you see. But then he says, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life. See, life comes from believing, not the other way around. I denied that they're interlocked. Okay, so now I'm lying. You see how this works? You see, this is the way. I could tell the spirit of Matt even on my comments. I could tell by the way he would say things. This is him. This is Matt. I deny it. Now, you're lying. You lying dog, you. So that's what it is. What is it going to be next? Am I going to be the spawn of Satan? Is that what it is because I disagree with you? You see, now, but this is the kind of Calvinist that I don't enjoy talking to. I will talk to publicly. But I can talk to plenty of Calvinists. You're lying. No, see, I'm not lying. I actually believe the things that I'm saying. I may be wrong. But that doesn't mean I'm lying. I could be wrong. I'm not omniscient. I don't think that I'm wrong. You certainly didn't convince me that I'm wrong. But I'm lying. This is what people do when they're in third grade, for one thing. This is what people do when they're desperate. I could tell that when Matt, he did this about the influence thing on the comments on the Facebook. I said, that's not what free will is. And he just kept saying the same thing. So I kind of already got the Matt Hagen's shtick. He's just going to say it again and again and again. And no matter how long you say, but that's not what I'm saying. But anyway, regeneration does not precede faith. It doesn't work that way. Does everybody see it? Now, again, if you're a Calvinist, make sure you can call in. Make sure you call in. Now, somebody requested it, but hasn't called in. And if you're a Calvinist, okay, what do we got here? All right, here we go. This is the, hello, you're live on the air. Can you hear me? Okay, I can hear you. Hold on one second. I got to put you on speaker, I think. Hold on. Okay, say it again.
I can hear you now.
Okay.
I just wanted to make one statement, and then I'm gonna get off. Because I'm glad you put this out there, so I can tell you this.
Okay.
That debate that you did with Corey Minor concerning the Greek, Greek, John 10.
Right.
I heard you clearly. Hobby Lobby fits. You did a very intelligent and great job on that. I mean, I wish my followers that listen to him can hear it. I have nothing against him. I'm just telling you what you did. You allowed me to see something that was awesome, and you shared it real well with him. And I'm sorry he playing those games not to hear what you have to say. I just wanted to share that with you, on how you broke the Greek down with him and let him know he didn't see what you were saying. And if he did, he's been disingenuous.
Right.
So I just want to give you that tidbit.
Okay. Hey, I really appreciate that, and I'm with you. I wish nothing against Corey Minor. I just wish that he would, kind of open his mind a little bit and listen. But hey, I appreciate you. I appreciate the.
He's deceptive though, because you can't even get a word edge right in because every time you talk, he's over talking you. It's a disgrace.
That is absolutely the truth. Now, if for anybody who doesn't know, Corey Minor is someone who does believe in a certain degree of Calvinism. He doesn't claim to be a Calvinist. We had a debate, but my problem with Corey Minor has been he doesn't listen. He wants to just talk over you. He wants to give you a lecture. And, if I'm wrong, the only way a person is going to be able to convince me is that they're listening to what I'm saying and be able to respond. But he doesn't do that, and I wish that he would.
Yeah, but the thing is, what's happened is that what you're doing, you're bringing exposure that people are not aware of, because I've got a lot of respect for what he does, but the thing is, he's disingenuous in a lot of his teachings, and you expose that. Yeah. Well, you expose that. Extremely expose that.
Well, I appreciate that there are people like you out there who are listening and judging. And you're not just hearing one side. I mean, you obviously listened to Corey and you heard what I said and you made a decision, and I appreciate that. So.
That's what I want to. I'll let you get back to the show and listen to the live.
Okay. Hey, thanks for calling. Thanks a lot.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you guys can go see what he was talking about with my videos on the Greek with Corey Minor. But I appreciate that. Okay, yes, DTS, Dallas Theological Seminary. I don't think it's a good place, but some good comes from it. Daniel Wallace, I think he does a fine job in the Greek there. But anyway, okay, where was I? Okay, so I don't want to bore people with the same kind of going back and forth with Matt here, but let's see what he has to say. This guy is intentionally being stupid. Well, you think I'm being stupid? Let me tell you this, Matt. I may look stupid, but I'm going to tell you this. My wife says I'm smarter than I look. So, take that. So, and then Matt says, oh, it's scrolling and I lost it. He said something else. It's impossible to say God foreknew everything yet didn't determine those things. That's exactly what I do say. It's the stupidest possible response. Yeah, how old are you? I mean, is everything stupid? I mean, let's grow up a little bit here. I hope you don't talk like that on your podcast. I think you said you had a podcast. I mean, yeah, some things are stupid. If someone denies God's existence, I say that's stupid. But I don't throw stupid around that often. So how you guys doing out there? So, what I like about the call-in is we can kind of be relaxed. But I'm not... Let me see here. Okay, I'm just texting somebody. My time is about to come to an end. Yeah, stupidity doesn't have an age limit. No, I'm talking about the way you speak, of course. 11-year-olds say everything's stupid, Yeah, you're something else. I'll tell you this. I hope you don't speak this way because, first of all, it's just boring to listen to someone speak like an 11-year-old. And it's no wonder you get so amped up because the kind of person that go, you're lying, you're stupid. I mean, yeah, that's the kind of person that's going to get really excited when they're losing an argument. And I could tell that from the comments that he leaves on my Facebook. But yeah, so I'm just going to say this. I know a lot of people aren't paying attention to my Facebook comments. This is what I always say, and I say the same thing to this guy, Juan, who comments he's a Calvinist. It's easy to send me a bunch of comments. I get it on Facebook because I don't respond much. I'm not going to do a big discussion on Facebook. But I was really hoping both these guys would call in. Now, Matt Hagen, to his credit, called in. But anybody that pays attention to how he works on Facebook and how he works here is gonna know just what I've said. It's not as easy to do in live discussion what you do on comments, because I'm gonna be there and I'm not gonna let you get away with things. So but anyway, all right, so I'm just going to call an end to it. That's my time here. I appreciate you guys that called in, even Matt, even though, you know, he needs to mature a little bit in the way he speaks. Not everybody that disagrees with you is lying. But if you think I'm lying, well, that's okay too. So I'm going to bring it to a close. I appreciate you guys paying attention. I appreciate disagreement. I appreciate the guy that called in the end there to tell me that about Corey Minor. So God bless you all, and good night.